Well, good morning, everybody. The election's over in Alberta. It's funny, so many posting like this is my beliefs, like somehow what almost 2 million people decided last night, at least 1.65 million Albertans decided, has something to do with me and my personal views. The reality is, I only measure the electorate as it really is, and clearly, I was plus or minus in all my predictions half a percentage point. I clearly whipped every political, every pundit, every single media group. These are not my beliefs. I do a mathematical equation and I relay that to what it is. I analyze political parties for their platforms that I didn't write. I don't know why people get angry with me when I don't support things or I don't go along and get along. When clearly for 4 straight years I've been pumping a totally different message and narrative. Anyone who follows me, you'll clearly see a completely different messaging, a whole total different platform than the status quo, which isn't working in Canada, and people keep continually falling for it over and over and over. Now, I'm very happy last night, all numbers in. It was looking like upwards of 700,000 didn't participate in the election. The numbers are in. That number is still massively high. It's 365,000 Albertans. And I'm going to have the proof of this in July from the Chief Electoral Officer. I know for an absolute fact, without a doubt, and nobody can dispute it, that more than 100,000 2020 level electorate didn't vote in this election. They didn't vote. Now, you can say that's not a whopping number when it comes to it's 1 in 16 didn't vote that traditionally vote in Alberta. But folks, it's more than that. It's considerably more than that. The number's actually close to 365,000 Albertans. Over the last 4 years, we've watched monumental increases in Alberta's population. We watched, now today, the clear claim, 4.67 million Albertans. Of those increases from the 3.75, 265,000 are now new Albertans over the age of 18. They're not just from other parts of the world, folks. They're from other parts of Canada. The net migration, I've been following it like nobody else. Clearly, we saw last night with all media, all political pundits, everyone clearly going off the 2020 Chief Electoral Officer reports. I ran in a majority in Alberta. I have the entire list of the Alberta electorate, every single registered voter's name, their addresses, all of it. I'm not allowed to publish it. It's against the law. But I have that. And folks, that's what the media ran with. That's what political analysts are running with. And I promise you, with 97% certainty, and if you don't believe it, how was I able to nail the vote count and seat exchange last night better than anybody else in Canada? That's all news media. Nobody predicted the vote and the seat exchange to go the way I did. In fact, everybody said it was going to be an historical, large amount surpassing electorate of the last election. And that clearly was not even close to the truth. We all saw it live. In fact, they had trouble, not with electronic voting machines, but for spoiled ballots. People who spoiled their ballots. I would love to see what that is, but we're not going to see it because the media has been silenced. They won't report it. We know a lot of people stayed home. More than that, we know the percentage of Alberta's increase, and clearly the electorate didn't show up. We know net migration from many other provinces to Alberta. At least I do. And these are real statistics logged with the government, with the Alberta government and all the provinces. I follow it faithfully every month upon month. I knew what the numbers were going in. I inputted that into my formula. It gave me seat projections, and it also gave me a voter turnout, which I nailed. Nobody else did. I'm within 0.5% of the actual seat counts, whereas everybody else plus or minus 8%. What happened to 3%? What happened to 1.5%? This is how bad your government system is across all aisles. If this was the corporate world and you could go to CEO after CEO, and if they told you my margin of error is 8% or even 6%, they're not going to be in business very long at all. And you know what, Canada? That is the results of our corporate system today. In our massive, overwhelming, highest in all of the G20 corporate debt to GDP. USA isn't there yet, but they're not doing so great either. The government's eating a tremendous amount, borrowing against their own citizens. They've reduced income tax for businesses massively. The Job Cuts Tax Act by Donald Trump, they did that. We're seeing the effects of that. The government can't support its ballooned spending. USA is going to get a debt reduction. They're going to get a credit reduction. It's going to say your debt surpasses what your government can physically handle, and you have no revenue to support that spending. You're going to have to find a revenue source. If they've cut corporate taxes, clearly the only other sustainable, practical source of taxation is personal income tax of Americans. It's coming. Sin taxes won't cover it. All kinds of other taxes won't cover it. The bullshit of taxing the rich clearly won't cover it. Every American from every working class system or corporation is going to have to eat 23% just to sustain their system. What does it mean for Canada and why I go through this? Canada doesn't run on any standard, none whatsoever, except for USA USD standard. Instead of a gold standard, we have USD standard. Everything Canada does is based off the American dollar. Entirely. All our politicians are in bed with it across every single aisle. All of them. 18 countries in the world today are switching to the BRICS system. That's going to reduce America. Is it going to wipe them out? No. But America needs to rein in its spending or acquire a major revenue source. They're not doing that. Not yet. But they're going to have to. And when that happens, Canada's going to get hit largely and hard. The economic destabilization of the USA is directly linked to Canada. More they talk about AI. It's not going to affect America like AI is going to affect Canada. Canada, we continue at an unsustainable, massive immigration system. We follow the British Empire. We do that in its exact, and that's what UK has done. And UK economy, which we are 6 years behind, is totally in the dumps right now. So is Germany. Two countries we keep roping into doing more and more business. That makes no economic sense. None whatsoever. We attack all kinds of countries that you may not like their economic systems. I don't either. But I know value and markets, and I know macroeconomics, and it's not with the USA today. We are failing with the USA. We are dropping with the USA. They are in Canada's definition of a recession. They've been that way for a long time. And Canadians can't seem to grasp that. They seem to point and blame. I have so many people in my following saying, you're cheering for this, you're cheering for that. No, I look at the world as it really is. I'm an economist. I'm a mathematician. That's my skill set. I'm not a literarian. I look at things in numerical sense and I make a visual representation of that math. And clearly I'm very good at it. I'm not trying to brag or toot my own horn, but when we look at all of the last elections, I only get better, stronger, and more accurate than everybody else. And that's not an accident. It's not a fluke. You can go on my Facebook. I think a lot of longtime followers and friends, you can clearly see that. I nailed this election last night, not because of my wishes and wants. I'm one person out of 160%, i.e. 1.6 million plus voters who voted last night. I didn't sway any of that. I didn't create the NDP love. I didn't create the fraud called UCP. I watch it unfold like all of you. I measure it. I only tell the truth. Let me tell you some more truths about what's coming, and it's going to be partisan across aisle. A PST for Albertans. If you thought that was never going to happen, it's coming. It's coming. Your turn, again, is coming when your revenues are going to far be reduced than your expenses, because I'm sorry, Alberta, and I'm sorry that supposed conservatives can't see the reality that you're spending 33% more in the last 10 years than you take in. And in fact, your population that you took in was only 17.2%. That means for every new Albertan, our services are spending double what they've traditionally ever spent. Double. Nearly double. If that doesn't scream alarm bells, I don't know what to tell people. I guess it's the proverbial, you're going to find out. It's going to be a Venezuela, the proverbial Venezuela. You can't continue on forever in mythical, fictitious, and unsustainable narratives. You just can't. We can look at oil in the last 10 years. We can look at Alberta's natural gas, which doesn't yield a whole lot around the world at all. In fact, largely nothing. BC's moving towards that. Alberta's going to give pennies on the dollar to BC to see NDP and Liberals do very well in their narrative. They blocked oil. But your oil goes up and your oil goes down. Right now, today, you can go look at oil prices. We're under our massive profit margin. We're at low oil returns now. Western Canadian Select, $51 a barrel. These are when other countries are at their highest. We have the lowest price oil in the world. If USA drops to $60, $65 a barrel, we're going to start feeling the pinch. We're going to go immediately into deficit. Deficit, meaning the oil revenues will no longer support the provincial government spending. We're not even talking federal government. And this is what Albertans think is great, wonderful, sustainable. It's not. We're not going to be reducing any long-term debt. We're never going to get any better, and the country is slipping. Poverty increases. Why? Because we don't have a sustainable developmental program. We have UN sustainable development, unsustainable development. We've got Agenda 2021 that turned to 2030 that is now 2050, embraced and supported by both governments, UCP and NDP, right here in Alberta. That means there will be zero, I repeat, zero projects in the development of any oil-related expeditions and subsequent craftings of any of it. None of it. It's going to stay in the ground. What we have today is going to, over time, be squeezed out. What we have today is all we have. If we keep growing our population at the rate we're growing it, Alberta's going to be in deficit in no time flat. I predict 2.5 years, Alberta will not be able to turn any profits unless oil, by American standards, is $100 a barrel. Go roll the dice, Albertans, Canadians at large, with equalization, net transfers. Go roll the dice and tell me how often in the next 10 years you think American Western Texas Intermediate is going to sit at $100 a barrel. You roll the dice in the next 10 years and you tell me out of 12 months a year in the next 10 years how many times oil will be at $100 a barrel to see the great, terrific profits we received last year. If you think that that's sustainable, if you think this reality of Alberta and Danielle Smith is sustainable and it's going to go and we can spend like this and don't worry, rest of Canada, it's all going to be okay, it's you who's in a lot of trouble, not me. It's you who's got the liberal mentality, not me. People get angry, they get out of joint, they think that somehow I'm crafting things or trying to upset people, or the truth is upsetting, and that's all I ever present. I care deeply about all the people of Alberta, all the people of Canada, and especially all the First Peoples who live in absolute squalor and large margins. They have the same crown corruption of their chiefs and the elected system forced in by the Indian Act, which is by our provinces and absolutely our Canadian government. People are suffering in this country for no reason other than greed, power, force, and disgusting divine belief in themselves and institutionalization of a mass amount of Canadians. It is not like they reported last night in the Alberta election, 62% of the electorate. That was a fictitious lie. Can't prove it till July, but already I know 100,000, which is provable. They said, oh, it was just 100,000. It's 365,000. It's a whopping massive amount of the electorate, and it shows that the system isn't working. Democracy in Canada isn't working, and it shows it. Alberta shows it. But the media, the politicos, the pundits, the political hierarchy themselves are paying for a narrative. They're giving a narrative. Alberta is not 3.7 million people. It's 3.67 million people today. You'll find these stats all over the place. You can measure the electorate. You can measure the migration, how many people were over the age of 18. 265,000 plus the over 100,000 that didn't vote last night. 365,000. And if you take the list like I have, which only 2 people are going to have this election, only 2 people ran a majority. That was Danielle Smith and Rachel Notley. Now they have the current electorate list and the voters who voted. They can extrapolate how many of the new Albertans voted, those who moved to Alberta in the last 2 years, and how many didn't. I don't know what that number is. We'll see what the Chief Electoral Officer report is in July. But folks, a whopping mass amount of Albertans stayed home or spoiled their votes. 365,000 officially this morning. And that will be backed up in July. This is my video. I see a lot of people falling off, and if that's how they are, go. And we'll see. When I do BC, later this summer, I'm going to do BC, and that's my last province. I'll go see the wet sweating. I hope and I predict it will be well over 1,000 sign-ups, and I will mail those off. I will send it. I've put in so much money into this, so much money into the power of the people, real constitutionalism, fixing Canada, way more than I put into Alberta independence already. I still haven't even produced a website. I still have monumental expenses coming. But we'll see. And I will mail those out and we'll send it into the government and we'll see how many people return. But if it doesn't yield, and my stack is high, if it doesn't yield, then I guess we'll see. I hope for the best, but I have my sneaky suspicions. I watch my Facebook, I watch my following, I see people's attitudes, I see the ignorance, I see the institutionalization, and it terrifies me. It truly does. I'm afraid for what's coming to the USA with the federal government in power at hand. They're in longer past than they should be. We needed to see a House and Senate flip. Republicans largely to blame. They focused on narratives that were not going to win an electorate, and then you have to start wondering who's in bed with whom, and it's always a condition of the wealthy elite. But we'll see. I'm not going to lose heart. I'm going to stay the course. I'm going to finish BC. We're going to register this party early because I want to see how many people are going to come back of that nearly 1,000. I suspect I'll be over that by the time I'm done BC. Hang in there, follow along, and we're going to see. But it just amazes me how many people don't see things as they really are. How they sit back and, oh, it could be worse, or vote for the lesser of the evil. And clearly they're all evil. And you will see the source of revenue, PST in the province of Alberta. That will be the next thing put in place, not by referendum, but by decree. And you will see Notley and Smith jointly go for that. They're teaming up. They know it's coming. That's my video. Thanks. Share. Bye now.